So I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard about the common cold. And so what exactly is a cold? Now, we know when you get the common cold, you get that little, like, a bit of a runny nose, and sometimes you start coughing. You start coughing a little bit. But, like, what exactly is causing all of these? Well, what we know for sure is the common cold it's a virus, but it's also known as a rhinovirus. And so, rhino meaning nose. Basically, these viruses are the sole cause of you getting the common cold. These are the main culprits of all of the agonizing symptoms. So, but how did we get to this conclusion? So, really long time ago, probably BC somewhere, Hippocrates gave his first hypothesis ever on the common cold, and he called the cause of it, he says, was an imbalance of humors. Now, note there was not pieces of evidence that would really support this claim, because obviously we knew this was wrong, but this was unquestioned for about 2,000 years, so about 2,000 years going by, and this physiologist named Leonard Hill gave a new hypothesis, saying walking outside in the morning, moving from hot air to cold air. Basically, the difference in airs is what caused the common cold. Now, again, this does not have much evidence to this claim, but what could possibly have happened, what he was thinking is probably because, like, during winter, that's when people started getting, that's when people started actually getting sick. And so he probably thought when the inside of your warm house going outside to the actual cold of winter was probably what made you get the common cold. Okay. And then it wasn't until 1914 that this guy named Walter Cruz actually did some research, and he noticed that his colleague was having common cold, and so what he did is he took a little bit of his mucus and he filtered it out, and then he also put it through a sea salt solution, so any like little bugs or anything like that would probably get out. And then he asked people to put it up his nose, and so out of the 35 people that put this through their nose, 15 got sick. 15 got sick, meaning that, giving the conclusion that this was actually a pathogen, a small thing that was actually infecting us. But sadly, we still not enough research to decide what exactly it is, how it works. We just know it makes us sick, and we just know it's a pathogen. Okay? And then jump forward a couple of years, and because of this pathogen thing idea, most people thought the pathogen was a bacteria. Obviously, we know that the rhinovirus isn't a bacteria, it's a virus. So it wasn't until Alphonse Dauchez in 1927, Alphonse Dauchez, what he did is he took the mucus, took mucus and put it through a filter. But this specific filter was used to filter out bacteria, tobacco bacteria, out so that it wouldn't go through. So this was, and no, tobacco bacteria is like one of the thinnest ones. It kind of looks like tobacco. It's like a cylinder, a really long cylinder that's like pretty thin. And note, even that can't get through this. So, and then he put it through a solution and did a very similar thing, putting it through people's noses, but people were still getting sick. Thus, this concluded that this couldn't be a bacteria because it wouldn't fit through, and thus it was a virus. So we already knew what viruses were. We knew that they were much smaller than bacteria, so this was a little proof to prove that it's a virus but not a bacteria. Okay. So let's go a little bit over what exactly viruses. So they're kind of shaped like, well, some drawings will be shaped like a hexagon, but they're actually shaped that's called an isohedron, which is a bunch of like triangles shaped together. I think it looks a little bit like this that I used before. It kind of looks like that. So basically, the common cold, we know it's only made up of about 10 genes. Now, this is actually very, very little, yet they can cause such pain in the butt to us humans. So, and just in putting that in comparison, humans typically have about 20,000 genes. So, 10 genes is barely anything. And so, the process that these viruses go through goes like this. So basically, you or someone else will have, maybe they'll have a runny nose, and they'll probably wipe it on their hands or something involuntarily, or it'll be somewhere on their skin. Then, what they do is they either put it somewhere on their skin, or they touch like another object, and basically someone else touches your skin or that other object, and somehow get it back into their nose. And so this little cycle is how the virus spreads to another person. Now, going to deep down into the human body with the cells, basically what the viruses do is that they have to sneak into one of your cells. And so what they do is they input their RNA. So this is RNA because it's only half of the double helix of DNA. RNA, and they put it through the nucleus, so they basically they take out the normal instructions that the cell is supposed to make others of itself, or other instructions that it's given, and it replaces it with instructions on how to make more viruses. Note, only now is when the cell realizes that something is wrong. That, okay, I'm making more of these things, and I haven't been making other things yet. So, once it knows it's infected, because it's like being filled up with all these tiny viruses, it sends signals called cytokines to the immune cells to get them to get rid of all the viruses, telling them there's an intruder. Now, these immune cells are actually what's responsible for making us feel awful and sick. So, the result of having a runny nose, inflammation, and an itchy sore throat is because it's the immune cells fighting off the viruses. And they use these, they cause the soreness of your throat and the inflammation, the congestion, just to take out these viruses. Basically trying their best to get rid of them. That's probably why they go from person to person, because they're trying to escape the body. Now here are some cures or treatments that you can do to help get rid of the virus as fast as possible. But these are what have been, some attempts of what people have been saying. So back in Egypt, when the first evidence of a common cold, what they called resh, the cure was honey and herbs. So this doesn't sound too bad. But then later, a couple thousand years later, this Romanian scientist said to rub a mouse on your nose. And this probably did not do much. Probably might have made it worse because, back then, things were not necessarily the cleanest. Then, a couple centuries later, in England, another guy said to eat mixed gunpowder, eggs, and fried dried cow dung, which also probably made things worse and also was not the cleanest, so it probably made things pretty bad. But in reality, the only thing that actually truly gets rid of the virus faster is zinc. So, if you do know what zinc is actually an element on the periodic table. But zinc, the actual medicine, what it does is, if you take it in the first few days that you have the infection, it can actually minimize the, how long you can have the virus for, up to a couple days. And sometimes you'll get rid of the virus and you'll stop being sick significantly faster. But yeah, that's basically it for our video. I hope you did enjoy. And if any of you guys are having the common cold right now, because we're just getting outside of winter, zinc is probably a good idea for you guys to have. Even though might not be past the first few days, it's still a good idea to still take it a couple of times. So yeah. Also, just a fair warning: if you do have the common cold, do not take antibiotics. Antibiotics do actually make it worse for you, because if you have any bacteria at all, you'll get a little bit of antibiotics, and normally antibiotics are used to kill the bacteria, but if there's not many bacteria in it, it's not going to kill all of them, so the bacteria is going to adapt to this antibiotic, and then soon it will be immune to it. So try your best to just take, don't take any antibiotics for the common cold. It's not a good idea. Just making it worse for everyone else, and, well, also yourself. Well, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for listening.